Welcome to MEternal. I am Kenya Gibson, and I'm here with my co-host, Jay Wilson. How are you today?
I am well. How are you, Kenya?
Good. And we are joined in studio by a very special guest, Mrs. Tonya Lewis Lee.
Yes.
She's an attorney, filmmaker, and advocate for women and infant health. Welcome to MEternal.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you on the platform. We know that you're doing a lot of things in the creative space, but you're also doing a lot of things when it comes to the Black maternal health crisis that's going on in America. So I wanted you to start with like your work in that space, and then we can talk about all the other creative things that you've worked on.
Sure. Well, most recently, I produced and directed the documentary film Aftershock, which is currently airing on Hulu, about the U.S. maternal mortality crisis. We followed two families who had suffered the loss. Really the fathers and a mother who was left behind. They were raising their children, and they became activated in the space. So they had a loss, but they also they didn't want their loved one to die in vain, so they got activated and went out there to try to make change, to try to find a birthing center in the Bronx, to advocate for various legislation in New York State and federally.
Right.
And at the same time, just pick up the pieces and live their lives. And I think one of the things that I think people were surprised about, because we did initially sort of focus on the fathers. People were like, well, we're talking about maternal health, but how are you focusing on the fathers? But they're the ones that are left behind. And when you think about maternal health, it's not just a woman's issue. It's a family issue. It's a community issue. And we wanted to bring light to that. It's a tough issue. I wish I didn't have to tell the story.
Right.
But you tell the story to raise awareness, to help to support the work that's being done to try to make it a better situation.
Definitely. And I thought that was a very creative angle and lens to tell a story from, right? Because the fathers are often left behind. And Omari Menard, who was part of Aftershock, he has actually been on this podcast before to share his journey. What a great guy.
I love that. I mean, he's such a great guy and such a great spokesperson for, just first of all, being a man, being there with his partner throughout her pregnancy, doing everything he could to support her. And then after the fact, just being there for other men. He's so connected to other men in the community and in the community in general. And I have to say, Omari and Shawnee, who was Omari's partner's mother, they're so great too, because their relationship is beautiful. I've learned a lot from them. So when I eventually do my children have a partner, I think I've learned some things about how to navigate that from them.
Yeah. So, in terms of obviously these stories are important to communities of color. How do you see stories like this can really help shift and change the narrative of how mainstream America looks at Black maternal health?
Well, I think, first of all, there are a lot of people who didn't even know there was an issue. So I think first they have to understand the issue, that it exists, and that it's not the Black woman's fault. It's systemic. And so I think, first again, part of the reason why you make a film like this is to humanize the issue, because we read the statistics, but to see who the people really were and how they exist just as human beings. Unfortunately, I often, you read these articles that come out and then you read the comments. People just are so inhumane when it comes to especially Black women, Black women's health. And so, really humanizing the issue, and getting the lived experience from behind the statistics, I think helps people realize this is a real issue. These are real people. It's not their fault. It's a systemic fault. It's a systemic issue. How can I get involved in trying to make it better?
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you also told the story from the lens of the fathers and highlighting how much their parenthood is also affected by the loss of their partner. And I think we never really get to hear that part of what men are dealing with and how they have to learn how to almost suffer in silence because they still have to raise that child, but facing all of these societal things that make them have to disconnect from their feelings. But to see both of them activated and trying to bring other fathers into these conversations and other partners is just, it was beautiful. It was very well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in Omari's case, I mean, he was essentially left to be a single father of 2 children, right? 2 very young children.
Yes, absolutely. He had a newborn and a 2-year-old. I mean, he had to get up the next day and help his children keep moving through their lives. And it's amazing. I talk to Omari, all the time, and he's always going to pick up the kids, to do something with the kids. The kids are in the back of the car. I mean, he is full-time, full-on dad, and it's beautiful to watch him raise these beautiful children, and their children are just they're beautiful.
Yeah. They actually came to the MEternal live podcast that we had did at the Mental Wealth Expo back in October, so I was able to meet the both of them.
You saw the children?
Yeah. So
Anari and Kari.
That was very special to have them there. When you were selecting the stories, like, how hard was it to find the right story? Were there a lot of these stories out there? Like, what was that process like?
Well, I have to say, it really started with Omari and Shawnee. Shamani died in October 2019, and December 2019, they decided to have a celebration of Shamani's life and essentially put a call to action out on Instagram saying, we're having this, celebration of Shamani's life. We want to talk about the U.S. maternal mortality crisis, how it's affecting our communities. And Omari, in that call, said he wanted to also have a men's circle. And so we reached out to them and asked if we could film, and they agreed. I mean, they wanted to be in conversation about what was happening. And so, I mean, we were lucky in that they were willing to have us come and film. But again, they wanted this story told. So, and we were there ready to help tell the story. And then when Amber passed away in April of 2020, I think a lot of people had seen Amber had put out a tweet saying that she had had terrible maternal health care. We'd seen that tweet before she died. And then she died. And Bruce had a press conference, I want to say, a week maybe after Amber passed away. So he too wanted to be in conversation with community about what happened. He wanted to call for accountability from the hospital. He wanted the community to know. Before we even knew Bruce, we had a camera go out to that press conference and film that press conference. And then Omari reached out to Bruce just to connect with him, and then told him what we were doing. And he was like, well, let's do it again, because they wanted this story to be told. So following, they were the heart. And then Shawnee really is actually the heart, because she is the one that sort of said, I think this is a good idea. And they kind of said, okay, well, if Shawnee's down, then they were down.
And I love that you integrated some historical connection to how the Black maternal health crisis kind of started and evolved, because I think that was important for people to see and to learn. And I learned so much from those segments that were in the film. So I thank you for doing that, because I was like, I had moments where I'm sitting and I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah. We have to know how we got here. It didn't things don't just happen, right? We're a part of a continuum.
Right.
And actions from our past affect our present, will affect our future. So we have to understand that, so that we can understand how we got here and figure out where we go next, right?
I think it's also important to tell these stories so that people know, they've happened before, and gives them the power that they need to say, this isn't right, and I can speak up, and here's an example of how I know that that you guys know that these things exist, right? When we've done a lot of like focus groups with the moms and melanated moms, we always bring them these statistics, and they're like, I thought this was just me. I thought I was the only one, right? So if we're constantly thinking that these things are happening in isolation, we never know to seek out support or to have any place to activate, because we think it's
just us, or we blame ourselves somehow.
Exactly.
Somehow it's my fault. And I do want to shout out Helena Grant, who was the midwife who gave us that history. I mean, she is a brilliant woman who has a depth of knowledge of many, many things, especially when it comes to maternal health and the maternal health just history in the United States. And I mean, we could have had a whole film with just Helena talking to camera.
Yeah, there's just so much information that's out there. But this isn't your first time working in this space. I saw that you were the spokesperson for A Healthy Baby Begins With You.
Right.
Right. So how did you get involved in this space initially?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. I've written a couple of children's books, Please Baby Please and Please Puppy Please. And from that, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services had reached out and asked me to be a spokesperson for this infant mortality awareness raising campaign, A Healthy Baby Begins With You. And at the time, I didn't know that the United States had an infant mortality issue. I thought that was something for, countries that didn't have resources. It didn't dawn on me that it was in the United States. I didn't know that black babies were dying at 3 times the rate of white babies. I didn't know that it didn't matter what your socioeconomic status was as a black woman. You would still had a higher chance of losing your child than a white woman with less education, less money. And so when I heard the statistics and sort of educated myself, I said, okay, let's go out there. Let's talk to women. Let's learn. I mean, quite honestly, I think that when I first started on the campaign, coming out of the Department of Health and Human Services, it was really about, women, you have to go to the doctor, don't smoke, don't drink. It was a lot of putting the responsibility on women. And yes, we do have some responsibility.
Right.
But I will say after my first year of really understanding and learning, it's like, of course, it's not just on her. So let's figure out how we make our communities support our health and wellness. And so that's sort of where we went in the second year. And then we got young kids, we called our preconception peer educators, college kids to talk to their peers about making healthy lifestyle choices, maybe getting involved in public health for the sake of themselves and their community down the line. It was amazing. I mean, I worked with them for many, many years, and it was a few people out of that organization, and we made a splash, and it was great.
Yeah, that is great. And I see you're an attorney. Right.
Yes,
you have a
yes.
law background. So how do you think that attributes to some of the policy work that's going on when it comes to like the Black maternal health crisis?
Well, I can't, I have nothing to do, I can't take that. I mean, there are amazing people out there, and this is the thing, right? I do think it's all hands on deck, and we all have different roles to play in this, right? And there are the lawmakers out there who are really working on the legislation, drafting the bills, trying to push them through our Congress. I will say for me, I think in this space, it's really about, I was asked to come into a space and use my voice and use my platform to raise awareness. And so that's where I come in, right? It's like there are people, I have met so many amazing people in this country who are doing just awesome work for no shine, very little coin. And so if I can show up and amplify a voice to help them in their work, that's really what I'm trying to do.
That's great.
How do we get more people to be involved? Like when they hear your story, when this actually airs, like how can they be a part of the change that you're doing and keep that legacy going?
Well, I think everybody has to figure out like where they plug in and where they fit in. And if I mean, I think about just talking to you earlier about how you kind of came into the space. It's a similar thing. You see that or hear there's a need, even if it's small, right? There's a wonderful doula advocate that I know, Chanel Portia.
That's my
ancient
girl.
song doula.
Yeah.
She's someone who I think is another great example of that, right? She sees a need. She's doing the work in the community in her unique way.
Right.
And I there's so many people out there. I really though, and it starts small. You just show up somewhere, right? Volunteer. And you start in one place and you never know where you'll be in 10, 15 years. I mean, again, when HHS asked me to be a spokesperson, first of all, I was someone who did not speak in front of people. I did not do talks. But I was called, so I stumbled, tripped through it for many years until I got a little better at it, you know. And then it grew from there, and now I've done this documentary, and I did another documentary. So, you just show up.
Yeah. I like that you said that you were called, right? Like, do you think, you're a filmmaker, you're a creator, that your purpose has evolved into a space that you would have foreseen for yourself if you look back 15, 20 years ago?
I had not seen this for me, although when I look at it, maybe, it makes sense. Like I see the trajectory. God has plans, and I'm just, it's funny. I'm on a mission, and I'm a servant. And so, if I'm called to do it, that's what I'm going to do for the greater good, because I do believe that we can make a difference. Each person has the ability to make a difference. People are the ones that, make the decisions, that enact the laws, that impact our culture and our community. And each of us has an ability to do that. It's just about figuring out, again, how your unique voice does that, right? My family, we tell stories. Other people are there catching babies. Other people are there doing surgeries. Other people are doing it in other ways, and you just have to find it for yourself.
Yeah. Your family does tell stories. So you happen to be married to a very prominent filmmaker.
Yes. Spike Lee, yes, is my husband.
Yes.
That is a fact. It'll be 30 years this year that we've been married.
Wow, good for
God
you.
bless.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is that like, being married to another creator and filmmaker? Like,
it's really an amazing thing, actually, because I will say Spike is just really supportive, has been from the very beginning of me in my creative endeavors. And, he's an artist, and he believes if you're an artist and that's what you want to do, then you have to figure it out. It's really fun. It can be also kind of nerve-wracking, right, to show him a cut of something and hear his thoughts and his notes. But it's good. You learn and you but it's so funny. We can be each other's harshest critic. So I think we do approach each other kind of carefully.
Yeah.
Because
it's your creativity.
It is.
Yeah.
And, it's like we're sensitive about our creativity.
And your wife. So
exactly.
Right.
But I want to be real with you.
Right.
Because I don't want you going out there looking crazy.
Right.
So it can be kind of,
Yeah.
But it's good.
Can I ask, what made you decide to go into documentaries? Like, of all films that you could have produced, why is documentaries so important?
Well, I think
to create.
I think that documentary, I think it's important that we get a sense of what's happening and reality, right? And the first documentary I produced was on the legacy of Brown versus Board of Education. It was called I Sit Where I Want, the legacy of Brown versus Board of Education. And we were up in Buffalo, New York.
That's where I'm from.
Is it really?
I am
so
from
funny.
Buffalo, New York.
Shout out to Buffalo.
Exactly. That's so funny. Well, I don't remember the name of the school, but there's a school there that was very integrated. I want to say maybe it was an art school that's very, very integrated. And yet, of course, at lunchtime, the kids all separated. Yeah. And so we wanted to explore that with the kids, and for the kids to how did we get here, And to me, in that film, it was really interesting to hear teenagers talking about what segregation really meant to them.
Yeah.
Why they segregated. What was that about? How did that feel? Do you think you want to integrate? What does integration feel like? So we had them sort of, they sort of created the situation where they integrated the lunchroom, and then it went back to segregated again, but they felt really good for a moment.
That's so interesting. I can tell you a little story.
Yeah, please.
So I was born in the 80s. My mother, she went to the high school that I went to, and she said that she was a part of the integration pilot where they bus the kids in from all these different neighborhoods into these schools that used to be prominent schools, and now if you look at them, a lot of them have flipped, right? But she said she remembers literally walking into the building and people throwing things and teachers saying you don't belong here, you're going to ruin the school, and then just to see not even 20 years later the school, and a lot of these schools end up either closing or they receive so little funding, it created by design a lot of the issues that they were saying, you're not going to graduate, you're not going to have what you need, But I wonder, is it because they forced the integration?
Well,
or
it's Black people were getting an education, and we don't want that.
Right.
And so you destroy it for everybody. I mean, that's the insanity of white supremacy, right?
Wow.
White supremacy is hurts everybody, whether we realize it or not. So you're so angry that you don't want Black folks to have it that you destroy it for your folks too.
Yeah.
It's a horrible, sad thing. And that's what, I mean, when you look at, I mean, that's a whole nother thing, education in this country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've just destroyed it. And our, our leaders, it seems, don't want people educated because they can then control their minds. And here we are.
Yeah.
Right. Here we are. And what's interesting is like systematically, the same thing's still taking place today when it comes to what's going on with the Black maternal health crisis.
Right.
It's just another form of racism.
Systemic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing. And the thing is, I often say, you look at this maternal health crisis and you see that Black women are dying at 3 to 4 times the rate of white women. Even if you don't care about Black women, you should be paying attention because it's coming for you. I mean, it's already not great for you. I mean, compared to other industrialized nations, white women are doing as well.
Right.
So if you solve the problem for the most vulnerable, you solve it for everybody.
Right.
But you're so busy, so worried that Black women are going to get something
Yeah.
that you keep it in a situation that's not going to be good for you either.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember us talking about like comparing the statistics. So like we know across the country is 3 to 4 times likely Black women are dying, right? But if you look at the like state specific
It's
rates,
terrible.
New Jersey you're 7 times more likely.
New York, in some places, it's 12.
Exactly.
That's
right.
crazy.
But if we're not bringing those things to the table, this is how the message gets diluted, right? So it's
Exactly.
literally like, let me see the words I had in my head, like the miseducation of maternal health.
Totally.
Right? So it's like I can misinform you by giving you like a convoluted version, like, oh, well, it's really not that bad. It's only 3 times more likely. But,
But the reality.
Exactly.
But it's so
Yeah.
interesting. I was just reading in the paper this week about how a lot of hospitals with maternal care are closing in rural areas that impact indigenous populations, rural populations, which are largely Black populations. And it's like, and when we talk about the history of all this stuff, right? So you knock out all of the care that we did have, right? So you get rid of the Black midwives, you get rid of Black doctors, and we're all integrated. And then the system is all messed up, and they're like, oh my God, we can't make any money doing this.
Right.
And so then you take it away completely. So it takes time, but now you've left these people with nothing.
Exactly.
When they historically had a system that
In place,
worked,
yeah.
Yeah.
but you dismantled that, and now here we are, and now what do we do?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
And I love that you highlight that in the film, right? And you kind of show the trajectory of like how it started, what happened, and how it got altered, because I just think a lot of people don't understand or didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we need a pipeline of healthcare workers. We need a pipeline of Black midwives, a pipeline of Black OBs. We need our young people to be thinking about these professions. It's dire.
Yeah.
Important film and super important work, especially in a time like this. So I thank you for
that.
taking the time to amplify the voices of those who are impacted by this the most and telling their story and sharing that with the masses, because everyone needs to watch Aftershock.
Well, and I want to also mention that we do show An Amazing Birth, not to like tell the story, give it away, but there is, we do follow a woman who we met in Oklahoma who was planning to, well, I won't tell the whole story, but who we follow and actually has a really
good
beautifully
experience,
supported birth. So, we were lucky to catch her birth, but it's like it shows you what's possible when everything is in place. So I just want to mention that it's not there. We do show a positive solution.
Right. I think that's important too, because when you think of advocacy, people often think of just the problem.
Exactly.
But like when you're advocating, you're actually showing what the solution looks like when you involve the people who are going through the problem, because they're the innovators. They're going to give you the answers that they need. They just need to be listened to and affirmed, right?
Exactly.
So that's what you're doing.
And that's what was so great about Felicia's the woman who gave birth. I mean, like literally we were following her journey, and then she makes the decisions that she makes, right? And she shows us that, even at 35 weeks, if you want to make a change and get a different healthcare situation for yourself so that you feel supported, you can do that, you know?
It's good to have choices.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
it's
it is.
good to know in communities of color that work is being done for us so that we have a better health and wellness journey and story overall. So I just want to thank you for your work
Absolutely.
in that space. And you're doing some other things. You're working on, you have a supplement line called Movita Organics. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started Movita Organics back in 2017. It's a organic vitamin supplement line. Out of the Healthy Baby Begins With You campaign, I mentioned we had a peer-to-peer program, and I wanted to continue a conversation peer-to-peer with women in general, and I started a blog called Healthy You Now. And I did it. I had no idea what I was doing. I, with my own money, put something up and wanted to turn it into a business. So went out looking for funding and met a gentleman who's now my partner, who at the time was the CEO of a vitamin company. And at the time, I was taking a really good vitamin. And I was like, why am I feeling so great with this vitamin when others, didn't really seem to do much? And he gave me an amazing education on vitamin supplements. And what I discovered is just like everything, there are really great products in the market and not such great products in the market. So you have to be an educated, smart consumer. And so, we decided to go into business together as a way for me to continue the conversation with women about making healthy lifestyle choices. And creating a tool to help women, because our product can be taken on an empty stomach, and I always say, like, you make one good choice for yourself at the beginning of your day. Hopefully that'll help inform other choices you make throughout your day.
Yeah.
And I also want to be a part of a community. We're creating a community where women can come and learn and talk, and we're cheerleading for you. I mean, I'm going through my health journey, and it's some days it's great and some days it's not so great, and I need my community and my friends to talk to get motivated.
Yeah, and have that community of support.
Absolutely.
It's so important, right? And supplements are so important.
Yeah.
They are, and the right kind, right? And so I'm really, really proud of our supplements. I would not have them if I would not be in this business if our products were not of the best on the market, and I say that because I know it to be true. Our products are made with organic. Our products are made with organic ingredients. We are third-party tested, and sometimes that means we've been sold out, and it takes a minute for them to get back, because if it doesn't come back right, it goes back, and we make sure it's right for you. So, I'm really excited about what we've created. We've got a multivitamin D3, a beauty product, hair, skin, and nails, vitamin C, a B complex, and prenatal.
Well,
Nice.
you look great. So whatever you're taking and you're telling me
all
to
of the
take, I'm
things.
taking it.
Well, we do what we got to do.
Yes. So where can people find out more about that?
So they can go on our website, which is movitaorganics.com, and we're also available on Amazon.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Nice.
So before we close out, I just want to ask you, is there any advice that you could lend to mothers of color who are listening to this podcast right now that may be going through the journey, have had an experience along the way that you could share?
Well, I would say advice-wise, what I realize in life is that life is stages and phases, right? When you, especially as a mother, you first have your baby. That's the beginning of your motherhood. Again, Helena Grant, who I mentioned earlier, always said, like, when a woman gives birth, she's giving birth not only to a baby, but also to a mother, right?
Yeah.
And so that thus begins your journey as a mother. And I think you have to learn how to take care of yourself as you're taking care of your baby, but give yourself a little bit of grace, because there is a period of time where you're going to have to give more to that child than you do to yourself for a minute. But find that balance. And it's funny, there was a book when I was a relatively new mother, and I was kind of struggling, right? And it's so funny because just this random person shoved this book at me, and they were like, "You should just read this." I was like, I don't need it. And they were like, just read it. And it happened to be T.D. Jakes, The Lady, Her Lover, and Her Lord.
Oh, wow.
Now, I was raised Christian, but I wouldn't have necessarily picked up the book myself. But for some reason I said, okay, I'll take it. And for some reason I read it. And that book gave me a little permission to be a little selfish, right? Because it's about, you do have to give to yourself.
Yeah.
And you do have to find balance, because if you don't give to yourself, you can't give to anybody else.
Right.
but it's also stages and phases. So there's a time, my sister has kids in high school, and I joke with her. I'm like, oh yeah, your head's on fire right now, because I remember that. I remember getting kids through high school and into college, and oh my God, it's such an intense time. But then you get over that hump, and then you're in another phase of your life, which is so wonderful, because then you can give it back to now you're back to yourself.
Right.
But try to set yourself up so by the time they're gone, you're not like at a loss trying to figure it out. You know, you want to be ready for yourself. I think we're at a time in life when, you know, hopefully, you know, we live a long time. And so you want to think about that. You know, okay, this is a time for when my children are young. This is how I'm going to manage this. And by the time, you know, they're on their way, I'm going to shift gears for myself and what's going to be there for me.
Right.
And I think, you know, and then I think about it too here where I'm at this age. I'm thinking when I get to, how am I going to be when I get to 80? So I'm working today so that 80, I mean, I'm enjoying now, but I want 80 to be really good. I have a vision for what 85 looks like, and I'm going to still be working. I'm going to still be working out. I'm going to still be feeling good, and I'm going to still be engaged in trying to make my community a little better than I got here.
Yeah, and what you did is also you're teaching your kids to do that as well.
Exactly.
So when you're giving to yourself, you're giving them the permission that when they choose if they want to be parents, this is how they're going to be able to do it because they saw you as their example.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
Well,
Look at God.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
Won't he do it?
Yeah.
That is the truth. Because
Yeah.
none of it is without God.
Right. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming up here today
Well,
to be
thank
on the
you.
This is
MEternal podcast. We appreciate you. And where can people connect with you, follow you, and all those
Right.
things?
So I'm on IG at Tonya Lewis Lee. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
But yeah, check us out and check out MovitaOrganics.com too. We'd love for you to check out the product, and if you like it, let us know.
All
Yes,
right.
definitely.
Thank you.
And even if you don't, let us know, because you know we're always listening and want to adjust. If there's a product you think we should be bringing to market, let me know that too.
That's good.
Awesome.
That's good. Well, thank you again. And thank you for everyone listening to MEternal. I am Kenya Gibson here with my co-host, Jay Wilson. And we will be back very soon with a new episode. Until
Have a great
next
day.
time.
All right.